Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Dreadful Discussions. I am one of your hosts, Joel Austin.
And I am your co-host, Caleb Jones. And today, for our dreadful discussion, we will be talking about The Rotting Room by Viggy Parr Hampton.
Yeah.
Uh, just full disclosure, one of my favorite horror books that I've read in recent memories. I loved it. And anybody that is watching this, just a heads up, we will very likely go into some spoilers. So if you haven't, I don't know why you haven't, but go read the book now.
Go read it. It's so good.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Of course.
So right off the bat, I saw in your bio that you are an epidemiologist.
hmm
That has to have had some inspiration on this story, I would imagine, right?
I think so. I mean, yeah, I have an epidemiology degree and I worked at the CDC for a year on botulism. So if you've read my
Wow.
first book, which is called A Cold Night for Alligators, that has a lot of epidemiology inspiration. But I think a lot of it has informed my interest in body horror.
Mm.
I love gross descriptions. I love talking about bodily fluids and germs and disease.
Oh.
And that's just like my happy place, which makes me super weird, but aren't we all?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's how we all got into this hobby or this interest in horror. We're all just a little strange.
Just a little.
Um, and yeah, I kind of went in pretty blind on this. Obviously we work with each other on Dread Pop, and I saw the cover and I was like, well, that's just a book that I have to read. I mean, it's a gorgeous cover.
Thank you.
Um, and I was like, pretty blind, and then the body horror started happening, and it was body horror in a way that I had not really read, like the elements of it, the descriptions of decomposing bodies, and the idea of it. Here's a big, huge spoiler right off the front of it being like used into a tincture to give to people to drink, like actually turn my stomach, which is in for prose is a really hard thing to get for me.
Yeah.
But gosh, it grossed me the hell out.
Thank you. I so appreciate that. That's my goal.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. Uh,
So getting right into the rotting room itself, those are real places, or were
Yes.
were real places rather?
Yeah, they were. So I came across this article in Atlas Obscura, which is one of my favorite publications, and it talked about the Poor Clares of Ischia, Italy. They were a 17th century order, and they had this room. You can look it up online. It is a stone room. You're not going to do that. It's okay. Ringed with these like chairs that have holes in them. And they would put the bodies of the dead nuns in there, and over time they would just kind of mummify and drain, and they'd collect all the bones and put them in the ossuary. And it wasn't just nuns that did this, there were monks that did this too, and they called these rooms putridariums, which is a very
Ugh.
fun word.
Yeah.
And yeah, very real. You can still see the rooms today. And when I was reading the article, I just thought this is too horrible to not be in a horror story. And then
yeah,
from there, the horror story happened very naturally because I mean, I started with something that was already gold, you know?
yeah, absolutely. Um, this is a question, and if you don't feel like trotting this area, totally understandable. Um, the book is pretty deeply steeped in like Catholic liturgy. Is that at all in like a personal background there, or was that just a lot of research that you did?
hmm A
Um,
lot of research. I was not raised Catholic. I did go to a Catholic college, but I was not raised Catholic. And I actually hired a Catholic scholar to review the book and make sure all of that was accurate because I didn't want to get anything
Wow.
wrong. I didn't want anybody to be reading the book and think, wait a minute, that's not how that works. And then instantly you're out of the story. So a lot of research went into that.
Yeah, well,
That's
it
cool.
feels very, very accurate. I did not grow up Catholic per se, but it did grow up in like a religious environment for sure. And it all rang very true to my experience and my just general knowledge of that area. So kudos to that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How did you approach the dialogue since not growing up Catholic, you had the researcher that helped or the scholar that helped, but the dialogue felt very authentic, very spot on for the time and the content.
Well, it helped that they're silent for 23 hours a day, so I didn't have to think too much about dialogue. But again, a lot of research. It wasn't just the religious part, it was the historical part too. And I wanted to develop a voice that sounded kind of authentic to the time. I even, when I first wrote it, I had, contractions in there, can't, wouldn't, went and took all of those out,
Cool.
which I don't know if that matters to people, but to me, it just reads more historical that way.
Mhm.
So I was very careful on a line level to make sure the language felt authentic. And again, research really played into there, and also getting beta readers and copy editors to review it too, because I'm not perfect.
No, it's really well done. I just recently started reading The Buffalo Hunter
Oh, I
by
want to read that.
Stephen Graham Jones. And like the historical accuracy is what really makes that book just amazing so far. And I cannot praise you enough for doing the same thing with The Rotting Room.
Thank you.
It feels very much of its time and in both an accurate and horrifying way. Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely. And speaking of the vow of silence, that is such a great plot device. Um, what exactly inspired that choice?
So the Poor Clares actually do, they're still in existence today, and they actually do have a vow of silence that's very similar to that. I changed some things just to make it easier for my plot, but it was difficult. I mean, some people would say I shouldn't have done that because you have to rely so much on her interior thoughts, but I mean, horror is subjective, and I wanted it to feel claustrophobic. And when
Yeah,
you're in somebody's head and they can't really talk to other people, how much more claustrophobic can you get?
absolutely.
I love
And I
that.
think that you definitely, for Sister Rafaela, definitely give her a full, recognizable, distinct voice that really lends itself to the that interior dialogue of like, oh, is this woman on to like going to step into this big conspiracy, or is she going crazy? Which is it? And like just watching that unfold, it's really, really difficult needle to thread from a writing perspective. But I was on the edge of my seat the entire book, trying to figure out if she was going to lose it or not.
Mhm. I
Awesome.
love the good, unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Which characters presented the biggest challenge when you were writing? Did any of
Ooh.
them give you any trouble or throw you for a loop?
I don't know if any of them gave me trouble, but Father Bruno was difficult. Well, not difficult, but he took a little bit more thought because when I first wrote this book, it was a novella. It was 40,000 words. Father Bruno wasn't in it at all.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, "Let's make this longer." It felt like it needed to be longer. So I added him in and, changed some of the plot to have him in there. And it was really fun to think of his backstory and research what he might have done, what he might have experienced, and add that in. So he was difficult only from the standpoint that he was coming into a book that was already written.
Okay,
Right. That's
that's cool.
that's pretty impressive. That's a pretty massive rewrite because
Mhm.
Father Bruno's story accounts for, I'd say, at least like a third, if not more, of the book. Um, how I mean, is that just flat out difficult? How did that go?
It wasn't as difficult as you might think. I mean, in all of the books I've published, especially with my second one, Much Too Vulgar and The Rotting Room, they both needed massive rewrites. And I've just gotten used to it at this point, and I feel like the first draft, like I'm writing a book right now, I'll hopefully be done in 2 weeks, and the first draft is just kind of like get it out there, get the shape of the story. I mean, you guys know this, and then you figure out kind of what it needs, where it needs to go, how to tighten things up. And so I just thought of it that way, and it helped me not despair that I needed to rewrite, 50,000 words.
Right. So, based off of that response, I take it that you are a pantser, or are you a
It's been a mix. I feel like the books that I have published out now were pants to some extent, but I've written some in the interim that aren't published that were plotted, and I don't like them as much. So I've gone back to pantsing, and it's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked with Ben Young pretty extensively, who's like the preeminent plotter. And having read his stories, like I completely understand because they're quite intricate.
Mhm.
for me, like I just got to roll with the story, or else I just kind of lose the plot, so to speak. Uh,
Yeah.
this, so yeah, the idea of like adding essentially like a whole new story to it just sounds pretty intense, pretty impressive.
Thanks.
Very cool. This might get a little spoilery, but what was your favorite scene that you got to
Ooh.
write?
Honestly, I really loved the first scene, which this doesn't give any spoilers, but the first scene starts off, we're in the rotting room and Sister Rafaela is looking at a decomposing body. And I rewrote that first chapter several times. I think the first chapter, the first page, the first paragraph, first sentence is so important to grab people because I'm
Mhm.
one of those awful readers who, if I read, like 2 pages and I'm like, not in the mood, not feeling it, I will abandon it. So I tried to grab people from the very beginning, especially since a lot of this book, we are in her head. So I wanted people to see like there is action. And I just love describing all the decomposing bodies. So first chapter for sure.
Yeah, that was a very captivating chapter. Absolutely
Thank
pulled
you.
me in.
Um, all of the scenes, I forget the nun who shows up, who passes immediately. The body that we're mostly seeing decompose throughout the story. I forget the character's
Sister
name.
Faustina.
Yeah,
Faustina.
Mhm.
the scenes with her and Sister Abela in the rotting room where she is like talking to her, like or actually like even as I'm saying it right now, like are like giving me like goosebumps, just
Mhm.
intensely creepy. Um, was I mean that I don't even know that I have a follow up to that. It just seems like just a great element to the story that honestly scared the crap out of me.
Yes.
Thank you. I mean, I tell everybody I hope this book gives you nightmares, and I mean that in the nicest way possible.
Yeah, it's about as close as any book has come recently. It really is a creepy book.
Yep,
Thank
he
you.
did a really great job with all of the descriptions, all of the individual scenes that just make your skin crawl.
Yes, that's the goal.
Yeah, I'm looking at the back of the book and Nick Roberts's um, blurb here, and he mentions the first Omen and Immaculate, and I was thinking of those movies as well as a handful of others that I guess back in the day the film geek terminology would be nunsploitation.
Yes.
Did you get any inspiration from any of those movies? Because it definitely for me had that sort of vibe to it.
It's interesting you asked that because I originally wrote this, I think in 2021. So those movies hadn't even come out yet. And if I
Right.
had to pick a film that kind of influenced me, I would say The Witch. Do you guys remember that movie?
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
I
yeah.
loved the dark vibe, isolated, creepy, like religious horror. I mean, claustrophobic and historical. So that I would say that was more the vibe I was going for.
Yeah. Oh, I love that movie and definitely can get the parallel, especially like, a female protagonist kind of thrust into a situation where she
Hmm.
doesn't
Mhm.
entirely know what's going on until it might be too late to really reverse her actions. It's yeah, great, and you could go with way worse movies to draw inspiration from.
True.
So with all the research that you did, sounds like you learned a lot. Was there anything that really stood out that may not have made it into the book, or something that you just found incredibly interesting?
That's a really good question because I did do a ton of reading. I mean, I learned more about nuns in the 17th century than I ever wanted to. But I will say, as I was going along, the thing about writing historical is you think something, and you're like, oh, we need a bucket here. But then you don't think, did they have metal buckets? What were buckets made out of? I had to go down so many rabbit holes. Like, even all the glass bottles that the tincture is in, glass was super expensive back then. So I had to think of a way to tie that in. And it was it was the every step I had to, go down those Google rabbit holes. Was this accurate? I even like if I had a phrase or a cliche or something like that, I Googled the etymology to see if it was, current for that time period. So it took a lot of time, but I think it was really worth it. And in the process, like I said, I learned a lot more about so many random things, like the glass, like the buckets, fun stuff.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Um, the selling of the tincture, was that something that they actually did? Um, or was that just a horror device that really played into the creep level of this nunnery?
I wish I could say that was real, but to my knowledge, they did not sell what, came out of the bodies. They just kind of
Okay.
discarded it and kept the bones.
Sure.
It so uh, I'll tap into a little bit of my knowledge here. So I can't speak to the selling of like decomposing body juices, but there is like a controversy within the Catholic Church of them like essentially selling like relics as like penance for like sins and stuff, and it definitely felt kind of like that, tapping into
Yeah.
some of the like more I guess controversial elements of the church. I found that to be incredibly interesting as well.
Thanks. Yeah, and I bring up the whole issue of sainthood
Yeah.
later in the book because I also
Mhm.
find that super interesting, the idea that somebody can become holy based on does your body not rot?
Yeah,
And what are
Yeah.
other reasons for why it might not rot? So I wanted to really like dive into that and expose more of that and explore it too.
That
absolutely.
was really cool.
Um, so as far as the descriptions of decomposing bodies, it seems to be of huge interest to you. Like, how deep did the research go? It sounds like your education might have given you a little leeway into that as well. So give us a little insight into that.
Well, I have my undergrad was in biology of global health, and then I did my epidemiology degree. So human body, I know a lot about it, and it just comes kind of naturally because I spent my career looking at what kinds of diseases do people get, what happens when they enter your body, how can you die from them, which I think it's because I'm a germaphobe, so it's kind of like a know your enemy situation for me. Like the more I know about it, maybe the safer I can be. But I went down again a lot of Google rabbit holes about what would happen to a body in these conditions, and I think as fellow horror authors, you've probably done the same. Like nobody should ever see our Google history.
Right.
But looking through that, I was like, okay, what happens, to this bodily fluid or this one or that one? And I feel like when I'm researching for the book or writing the book, it doesn't scare me or gross me out. But if somebody else presented that to me, I'd be super grossed out.
Oh yeah, it's quite gross. It kind of like remind me like, of you know, your neighborhood has its like trash day, and like the trash truck comes through, and then you have to go get the bin, and then it just leaves behind for like a day
Oh.
or two, like this awful scent. That
Mhm.
was just running through my mind the entire time I was reading those scenes, and I was just literally going. I have a pretty bad gag reflex that I was just like absolutely disgusted.
Yeah, I had to stop reading the book right before bed because it was making me very uncomfortable trying to sleep.
Yeah, probably not a good book to read while you're eating either.
No, no.
Yeah, I was just like I was very, very surprised. Like I said, it takes a lot for body horror to really like get that visceral reaction out of me, but
Mhm.
this book definitely definitely did it. And I think it was because it's like something very, very unique to body horror, like the juices. Ugh, just that word
Yeah.
in this
Yep.
context is just like ugh, so disgusting.
Yeah, you see a lot of the blood, a lot of the organs, but yeah, very, very rarely did the juices come up, and that is a different level.
Yeah.
It is. I can agree with that.
Mother Superior, she was probably one of the more unhinged characters that I've read in a while. Did she start out that way? Did you kind of have an idea that that was where she was going to be going, or did she just get crazy as you were writing her?
I think she was always that way. I mean, you know that saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely. She's kind of
Sure.
in that position. She is the queen of this isolated abbey. And yes, she has Father Bruno, but he doesn't really control her. So she
Yeah.
can kind of run the abbey with an iron fist. And I think that was the seed of her downfall, definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of Bruno, Father Bruno, like, so is he supposed to be kind of like a disgraced priest in a way? Is he end up out here because of like a darker element to his past? Like, give
Hmm.
me a little thoughts into his backstory, because I found him very interesting.
So he's Albanian, and can I get into spoilers? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Go for it.
And as we know, since you've read the book, he had an experience when he was younger where he got lost in the woods and an older woman came and saved him, but the village turned on her and said she was a Striga, which means witch, and they killed her. And from there, he fled. He went to school with monks, and then he went to the New World and did some missionary work there. And then he was called back because they, needed his help back in Spain, and he was really good friends with his archbishop. So that's how he ends up there. I saw him more as somebody who's constantly striving to be the best possible version of himself and to make up for what he saw as a failure in his childhood. And so I don't see him as having a dark past because he's a dark person. I see him as
Right.
having a dark past because of circumstance.
Circumstance. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, yeah, that backstory. Uh, so it has been a grip since I since I read this book. It's been a couple months. I completely forgot about that. It was so dark though.
Yeah.
And like the idea of like a child going through that and
Hmm.
like essentially feeling responsible for something that they have absolutely no control over is pretty heartbreaking idea. Yeah, geez. Just like I said, it's been a little bit since I read this, and like just like coming back to just how delightfully dark this book really is.
Very dark.
Very
Yeah.
on Father Bruno as well. I really enjoyed the little will they won't they play with him and Sister Raphaela. I thought that was just a really fun thing to toss in. Obviously, they both had their vows, so it was yeah, pretty certain that nothing was going to come of it, but it was kind of fun to break up the darkness a little bit like that.
Also, I wanted to show that Father Bruno isn't a perfect person. Like he's a
Right.
flawed character because everybody is flawed. I didn't want him to be a caricature of a priest. And I think I showed you guys this already,
I
but
was gonna ask about this. It's a
I had
little.
a very funny review come in that was like, it was fine, but the nun and the priest didn't bang, so what was the point, really? And I literally just couldn't stop laughing. I mean, I am terrible at writing romance, so that's just never going to be something that's
Mhm.
really in my books. But if you want some romance-free horror, this is the book for you.
Yeah, that was an incredible review for sure.
Yes.
For being as you say, as you claim, like bad at writing it, there is like kind of a undercurrent of sexual tension there that's pretty fun. That might just be reflective of uh how men are, because it
Mhm.
feels like it's very much on Father Bruto's end there, and he's just being a typical
Yeah.
dog, you know.
Mhm.
I don't think Sister Raphaela, did she have any moments where she thought of him that way? I can't
I think
recall any
she's had a
specifically.
few, but like she's a little bit occupied, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Being in that abbey is not really an aphrodisiac, so she's just
That's how you should respond to that review that you got.
exactly.
I don't know how many nunneries you've been hanging out in, but not really going down like that.
Not the
Not
seed of
really.
romance here.
No.
That's funny. What, if any, overarching message or thing would you like readers to get out of The Rotting Room?
like there are a couple. When I was writing it, I was thinking just because you're a religious person does not make you a good person. Because I think we see this all too often. People say, I'm a Christian, or, I practice this religion. So of course I'm above reproach. I'm a good person. And I wanted to show every kind of view can get perverted into something dark. And I also kind of wanted to play with the idea of indecision and learning how to trust yourself or not, as in Rafaela's case, and what that can mean when you don't have kind of a core of self-confidence that gives you the right moral compass. Then you rely on other people to do it for you, and they will probably not have your best interest at heart.
Yeah. I found like the exploration of religious structures being so easily manipulated by people in power, uh, kind of true to life. I mean, not to touch on any nerves, but you kind of see it happening on a grand scale in the news pretty much every day these days. And yeah, the idea that this is a historical novel and that those themes are very unfortunately still prevalent is just as horrific as body juices.
It's true.
Well, that's all the questions that I have.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we covered it. We always come in for these smooth landings here. Um, is there anything, Viggy, that you would A, like to plug that you got coming up, or B, like any final thoughts on the Rotting Room that you'd like to share with readers?
Like I said, I hope it gives you nightmares, and I mean that in the nicest way. This has been my biggest book so far, and I appreciate every single person who's picked it up. I loved writing it, and no, there will not be a sequel where Raphael and Dana live together, just so everybody knows.
Uh, well, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, it's an excellent book.
It's nice.
If you viewers, if you got this far and you haven't read the book and haven't had it completely spoiled for you, still 100% worth reading. So go check out The
Absolutely.
Rotting Room soon.
Thank you guys so much. This was so fun.
Thank you. It was a
Absolutely.
blast.
And all of you dreadful discussers, our next book that we will be discussing is Clay McLeod Chapman's Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. He'll be joining us to chat with that, so we're very excited. Go read the book before we have him on, and we'll discuss that one with you guys later.
All right.
Ooh.
Well, thanks so much. I'll see you
Thanks
later.
so much, guys.
Bye, everybody.